Each speaker will speak for about 5 minutes or so, and I'll be the yellow card timer on those speakers. I may interject here and there on a few comments and thoughts that I may have as the moderator. And then Judy at the end, if there's time, we allow for a few short questions. Okay, there could be some questions at the end, but we'll let each speaker go through for about 5 minutes, present their areas, and then from there, we'll open it up to questions. So without further comment by myself, first up is Andrew Griffin from Community Development Block Grants, and what we'll ask for each of the presenters as well, just give a brief introduction about yourself and what you do, and maybe a short bio.
Thanks for clapping. Yeah, no, exactly. So my name is Andrew Griffin, as mentioned. I work for the Department of Homes and Community Renewal. I've worked at the agency for only 4 years. Right now I work on the Community Development Block Grant Program, CDBG. I used to work on New York Main Street, and those are the 2 grants that I'm here to present on. All right, so 5 minutes. All right, so starting with New York Main Street. Main Street's objective is to revitalize New York State's downtowns through commercial and residential improvements. So eligible applicants include units of local governments and not-for-profits. Main Street projects have 4 general types of grants. Building renovation, which is the traditional Main Street grant, which is matching grants that are awarded to building owners for mixed-use buildings to renovate for either commercial use or residential use. You know, the ideal Main Street building renovation project is apartments on top in a mixed-use building and commercial on the first floor. Those grants also include streetscape enhancement funds, so improvements to sidewalks and trees, parking lots, that type of thing. The amounts that can be used for building renovations between $50,000 and $500,000 grant funds. The second activity for Main Street is downtown anchor projects, and those are for a single building that would need to be renovated and rehabbed, and that's for generally large buildings that can make a real difference in a community. So like an old factory being converted into apartments, or things that's like a very large building with a large footprint. And those projects are $100,000 to $500,000 grant funds. The third is your Main Street Downtown Stabilization Program. So this is if you have a building that would cost a lot to environmentally remediate. So if it had a lot of asbestos problems or lead problems that would cost an obscene amount of money, you can come into Main Street and remediate that building using Main Street funds, and that can be applied for $50,000 and $500,000 funds. Finally, the last Main Street project that you can apply for is a technical assistance grant. And these are, if you intend, if you're not ready, if you're thinking about applying for Main Street, and if you're not ready to apply yet, you can apply for one of these technical assistance grants for $50,000, and then the next year apply for the CFA for Main Street project. So that takes care of Main Street, and then regarding Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG. So the objective of CDBG is that $70,000 of the funds must be used for activities that benefit low and moderate income individuals. So in every activity that I mentioned, the benefits have to go, 70% of the funds have to go for projects that benefit low and moderate income persons. So for CDBG, eligible applicants are only units of local government, and they can be broken down into several categories. CDBG funds are extremely flexible, but they're broken down into several categories that include public infrastructure. So these would be sanitary sewage projects, flood control, stormwater projects. Those can be applied for between $750,000, or if it's a joint application between municipalities, $900,000. Next is CDBG public facility. So these for senior services, child care centers, removal of architectural barriers for the disabled, also sidewalks, streets improvements and parking, and that the public facility program can be applied for $300,000. Then we have the CDBG Housing Rehabilitation Program. This is rehabs housing units across the municipality that are in substandard condition, and this is a little bit unique in that counties can apply for up to $850,000, and cities, towns, and villages can apply for $500,000 in funds. Then the home ownership program, which is very similar to the housing rehab program, but provides financial assistance to low and moderate income home buyers for the purchase of homes for sale. Same thing with housing rehabilitation. The grants can be applied for $850,000 for counties, and cities, towns, and villages apply for $500,000. Then there's the CDBG planning program, which same thing as with the New York Main Street Technical Assistance Grant. If you're not ready to apply for CDBG, you would apply for a planning grant to then, with the guarantee that you would apply for a CDBG grant after the fact. The CDBG Micro Enterprise Program, which provides financial assistance to small businesses for $200,000. The New York State CDBG Economic Development Program, which is for providing financial assistance to applicants that for attraction, expansion, or retention of jobs. And finally, the CDBG Small Business Program, which provides financial assistance for applicants to foster small business development and growth, and that can be applied for $100,000. So that gives just a brief synopsis overview of what CDBG funds can be used for. As I said, it's very flexible. But if you have any questions about them, we'll talk about them later in the program, and obviously I'll answer any specific questions you might have.
Great. Thank you very much, Andrew. Just real quick before I introduce Kathleen. For me, I've been with the state now for about 20 years, and I want to kind of talk a little bit real quickly about what Judy had said. So 20 years I started under Mario Cuomo in this capacity. I also remember when Scope was forming as an organization. But the point is, as Judy said, and never in my career, in the last few years, I've never seen such monies and economic development projects that have been put out by these funders in the state and the federal government in my whole career. I've never seen so much money and so many projects. So this is, as Judy had said, a wonderful time to try to partner, try to make applications, try to go after these funds, because the organizations, the entities have really done a great job of getting projects and money out the door. So next up is Kathleen Geisek from the New York State Office of Parks and Recreation and Historic Preservation.
Good morning. Is this on? Can you hear me?
Certainly can hear me.
Okay, that's a chronic problem for me. I am so happy to see all of you here today. You don't know what it really today. People are thinking about running programs now instead of 3 days before the deadline. Believe it or not, I have had people call me right before the deadline. I'm thinking about writing a grant. Can you go for it? Really thinking ahead and getting everything lined up, doing all your homework ahead of time is just critical. I cover 17 counties. I do both the Southern Tier and Finger Lakes for parks. This year I had 51 applications and 13 awards. So there's a lot of competition, and getting everything together and thinking it through is really critical. For parks, we do parks, historic preservation, and heritage area grants. And for 3 categories: planning, acquisitions, and development. Our grants are max of $500,000, and depending on the poverty level, they are 50-50 match. Or if you're over 10% poverty level, we have a 25-75, where the state covers 75%. For my grants, you must be either municipal or nonprofit. My grants are a reimbursement program. You must be able to pay for your projects up front and wait for money to come back. The length of time it takes depends on if you send everything in that you should have and what time of year it is. Our grants, when we're looking at grants, we're looking at community benefit and community support. I guess I'm going to be really quick. When we're looking for grant programs and the applications, we're looking because it's a consolidated funding application, it's really important when you're going through to read the questions and answer them. You have a lot of different programs, everybody's using the same application. I can't be digging, looking for answers to questions. When you're doing these applications, it's like, oh my God, this is the 5th question. It's just like the other ones. They really aren't, and we really are looking for specific information. And I'm not going to read someone else's questions looking for my answer. So that's the one thing that I would advise on that. I have learned through experience that don't put out a spreadsheet asking people to sign up so you can contact them. I will have a stack of business cards. If you would like to talk to me, I will give that to you, and you can email me because I can't read people's handwriting. So, anyway, thank you very much.
One quick thing to mention on that. It is absolutely critical when you are filling out applications, the questions are there for a reason. As a state rep, same as she had just mentioned, you're looking through piles and piles of applications. The one that gets the material the most quickly and the answers to those quickly are the ones you can most successfully move forward. One of the biggest holdups I have with projects is not getting information from the companies, the businesses, the nonprofit, the town, what have you. Those are the things that will hold things up in terms of moving applications forward. The other thing I would suggest is when you are thinking about a project, talk to us. It's always good before you just jump into making an application. It can't help to talking to the experts that work with these particular programs. So many times I have applications show up on my doorstep and all of a sudden I have to go back with that applicant and work with them to restructure that application. Sometimes when they make it a document that's part of the system already, I don't have an ability to change it on the applicant's behalf. So the point is, work with us when you can beforehand, before that application is finalized and made. Anyway, next up is Lynn Free. Yes, I got it right. From the Workforce Development Institute.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Good morning. Can everyone hear me? Yes. I have the exact opposite issue as you, Kathleen. I'm normally the loudest person in the room, so I'm not going to use the mic. My name is Lynn Freed. I'm the Regional Director for Workforce Development Institute. I've been with WDI for about a year. Prior to that, I was the Director of Workforce Development at Finger Lakes Community College for 11 years. WDI is a statewide not-for-profit organization tasked with assisting with economic development and workforce development in communities. I oversee an 11-county area. I'm going to just start passing out these books or packets if we can just share these. My business card is in there. I'm going to give 3 examples of work that I've done in the past year because I think that's the best way to explain what we do and how our grant process can work. Thank you, or you're going to pass them on. Okay, thanks. We don't have a very scripted process. We are tasked with, we do have a high focus on manufacturing and direct impact to the workforce. Well, okay, that can look like a lot of different things, but we're not limited to just manufacturing. So the first example I'm going to give you is of a community example, and this happened in Rochester. I cover 11 counties, including the southern tier, the Finger Lakes region, Monroe, Genesee, Livingston, and Orleans. There was an opportunity in Rochester to work with collaborative partners. I was able to write a grant for $6,000 for the cost of a grant writer that net $4 million in childcare specific to working families. So again, coming right back down to that direct workforce. So this was childcare that was going to be specific to the family that was maybe working part-time and needed to go back to school. All right, so they were able to afford good childcare, quality childcare, and have that expense to be able to use to increase their training and skills to be able to move up at work or maybe get a better job. That's one example that would be referred to as a community project. Another example, I'm going to use somebody here locally, is Chacombe Cabinetry. I'm sure most of you have heard of them. So an example there is we've been able to help them a couple of different times with equipment that needed training attached to it. And I want to make that differentiation kind of clear because we really cannot help just with capital projects. There has to be a direct line to the workforce. So we all know in technology, everything keeps becoming more and more precision, higher and higher end. So they had different pieces of equipment that came in that needed their incumbent workforce to be trained so that not only did it increase their skills and enable them to increase their already great high quality products, but then because of that, it made their jobs easier and manufacturing time less, they're able to hire on more. Okay, so again, that direct impact to the workforce. The third example I want to share is during my time at FLCC, you may have heard, we launched the Advanced Manufacturing Machinist Training Program in partnership with GW Lives. This training program has gotten state and national attention. I was invited 3 years ago to Washington, D.C. to speak at the Manufacturing Caucus with Congressman Reed to talk about training programs, partnerships, collaborative, that work. It gets extremely high success rates. It's 95 plus in graduation. So geez, how are you getting all those people in those seats when 95% are completing, number one. Number two, 95+% were getting a job with employers. That's another one. And for employer specific, they're actualizing 88% plus retention. So for anyone here in the room that is in manufacturing, bringing talent off the streets, providing on-the-job training and retention, and what that looks like 6 months, 1 year, 3 year, 5 years down the road, it's hard to get those numbers. So when we look at somebody that's been trained within industry and that remains within the industry, that 88% number goes up quite a bit. So what we did was we brought that program to the Southern Tier BOCES, and that looks a little bit different, but I've been working with them for the last couple of years to map that. And that's a multi-employer, so that program is currently running and very successful. And from there, because that program is kind of in the regions that I work in, that I cover, that has spread through that. So I'm going to do a machining summit later this spring. So again, more collaborative efforts. So for Chacombe, a little bit of money was spent on equipment that allowed them to upskill their folks and hire more on. For the training program, the collaborative training program, I write contracts with awards, if you will, with employers to help assist with that training process. Training is really expensive. Okay, so our training dollars are flexible, but they have to have direct impact to the workforce. How we get there is what we will figure out on a grant. Our grant application is a pretty simple process. The other thing, part of what WDI does is I will need to meet with you if you think you have an opportunity or would like to discuss that. I need to meet with you. And then there's a process where we take a lot of workforce intelligence input, and we take that. We're trying to stay in front of workforce trends and things that we see. We're a state organization, so that as different trends come, MTA is part of mass transit. It's part of grant dollars that are coming to this region. Tomorrow I'm going to a statewide meeting to talk about that, hopefully to bring back some expertise that may or may not be useful in this region. So we try to stay on top of anything in the state and bring it directly to the regions that we impact. But those dollars can look different. For the year that I've been here, there's been 52 contracts written in the 11-county area for just under $500,000. We're a small organization. We do not have deep pockets. So I want to make sure you understand that. We like to be considered, or we like to be used for gap funding. The folks up on the panel are going to talk about very specific, very strategic efforts. We kind of take a step back for that. We want to hear directly from you and exactly what's going on in your organization Where might there be a fit for us to be that gap funding that there may not be something